agenda for this evening, and there was a suggested modification, although I think the wording in that was a little confusing. The suggested motion would be to accept the agenda as modified to move the CUSR presentation up in the agenda to immediately after public comment.
So moved.
Second?
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call. Starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. So indeed, brings us to public comment. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to address the board this evening?
Nobody's here for the presentation.
Seeing none. UPD new staff introduction.
Yeah, come on up, please.
Yeah.
So it says we have two staff for environmental. Melissa, who goes by Missy, actually, is unable to come in tonight. She'll be here next month to visit with you. She's our Nature Center office manager. And then I'm going to have David here introduce Connor in a minute, but I want to give a little background on this position. We had started working to create this position before the holidays, actually. With our gardens expanding, and with our outreach and wellness roles expanding as well, we were planning to bring on a new position, and so we brought one on now, and it's our environmental services and outreach coordinator. So David, if you would.
Absolutely, yep. So thanks so much, everyone. Really excited to introduce Connor here, and you know, I feel a little bit out of place, but I'm excited to be the one introducing Connor because I'm the person who was lucky enough to hire Connor. He has been with us at the Nature Center since 2022. We hired him in the fall for a couple of part-time positions, you know, thinking maybe he'd be okay for the occasional birthday party and traveling naturalist. Since then, he has taken on pretty much every single position that we offer at the Nature Center, and then many other positions at other Park District facilities, and is just a wonderful person to work with. You know, really is the type of person that you want to have as a coworker who, you know, really is passionate about what he does, but also, you know, just easy to work with and easygoing and really efficient. So, you know, ideal coworker in Connor here, and really excited to be able to work with him in this new full-time role.
Yep, so just excited to get started, still figuring out what the day-to-day of this brand new position looks like. There's a lot of things to get involved in, but really looking forward to getting to it. I'm hoping to revamp some of our exhibits at the Nature Center and get to work with the animals and get to work alongside everyone at the gardens. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Welcome.
And my apologies that Missy couldn't make it tonight. That was my bad. When I did this, it was 2021, so it made sense that it was over Zoom, and I assumed it was still over Zoom. So she didn't know to be here in person tonight, and she wasn't able to change her plans last minute. So my apologies for that.
Next time. Thank you for coming. You just have to come back next month.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see you all again.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you much. So that brings us to Roman numeral 10, new business. Item A, review of the CUSR fiscal year 2025-26 budget.
Sarah, same question. Jared Schoeneman here from CUSR Board to join us. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Our intentions initially were to also include CUSR manager Christina Mott in this presentation, so we could give her some kudos because she recently received her CTRS certification. And unfortunately, she's working tonight, hosting one of our valued partners at the facility, and was unable to join us. So we'd love to bring her another time in order to do that. So I'm going to take the space that I was going to give her kudos and say several thank yous to you all first. So thank you to the commissioners. We really appreciate your long-standing support for inclusion and special recreation in both of our communities. President Walker, I think you've seen all phases of CUSR from its inception in 1985 to today. So I think this joint program, it's just been one of the best ways that both communities can truly say you belong here. So President Walker, thanks for your vision and your stewardship for many years. Tim, I want to thank you as well. I know this will be the last meeting I'll be presenting budget as you're moving on to, but I know on the admin board you've been thoughtful, warm, and you have an encouraging approach that just fits very well with CUSR and what they're about. So thank you. You'll certainly be missed.
Thank you.
Porky, it's definitely a pleasure working with you on the admin board as well. We have plenty of good conversations about a variety of things. So, and I want to say thanks to you all in general, meaning the residents of Urbana. I've gotten to know a number of participants from Urbana in the program that are wonderful people. And the recently restarted CUSR Advisory Committee has a bunch of Urbana residents as well that are really great and supportive of the program. So it's been great to be an extension of Urbana's team in this way for so long.
To expand some of our programming as
Absolutely.
well. With the after-school program coming into Phillips, we're really excited to see that continue to grow in the next school year as well too. It's been really great to see the interest and availability and your availability to move some things around in order to make space for that program.
Yeah.
We get to move out of the Y for powerlifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
got 10 gold medals associated with our powerlifters
Nice,
too.
nice.
Headed to state. Yeah, that's amazing. And aquatics. We use Indoor Aquatic Center as well. So, so thank you. This is all the reasons why I'm grateful that we have the Special Recreation Fund in general. And in this new political era, it's so important to have this dedicated funding for people with disabilities in our community. A lot of things that are happening might be frustrating, but for people with disabilities, the things that are going on mean everything to them. So your local support is so important to this program. Just as a reminder, the Special Recreation Fund is levied by both districts at 0.04. Both districts levy at the maximum rate, and the Park District set aside 0.0175 or 43.75% of that for ADA projects, and the remainder goes into the operations funds for the CUSR program. These all support their mission, which they recently reset and enhanced in their own way for their 2025 strategic plan, which is to enhance the quality of life for residents with disabilities by providing accessible recreation programs and services. So how do they meet their mission? Well, I started out in this role working with them more closely and tried to do a listening tour with staff and board members. And the focus was supposed to be directly related to awareness, advocacy, outreach, and then education. And that's where you see, Christina getting her CTRS as a shared effort. What's the hope in all this? Well, the hope is to increase participation. And I think as evidenced by the increase in our request for our budget this year, you can see how much more participation has happened and how many more staff we need to fulfill the ratios that we're seeing. Plus, the programs we're pushing into Urbana that cause us to require more staff to offer programs here as well. So notable items from the budget, I would say you can first see on the first line, Courtney, our new finance director, gave you a new format this year through our OpenGov online software. So hopefully that's a little bit more user-friendly and understandable where the fund balances are. But our anticipated fund balance at the end of FY26 should be around $2.5 million. There's some more expenditures this year, particularly related to the CUSR capital project, which was an OSLED grant supported project. We received a $600,000 grant to put in a new circle drive in front of the building and an all activities hub, as we were labeling it, in the backside of the building, play space, pathway, enclosed space to protect against elopement, etc. We've made some other really significant investments in the building. We've redone the flooring in the activity room. We've done a paint job in most of the building. The roof has been repaired and is getting painted next week. So I think you'll be really pleased when you show up and see how our welcoming approach is now fitting with the actual structure of the building. I think you'll love that. Again, we had increases in participation that you should see increases in the budget as well. But what isn't represented is that we also did a budget amendment in the last 3 or 4 months in order to correct some of the shortfalls that we had as participation outlapsed what we were anticipating in the budget of FY25.
Particularly in part-time wages.
Yes. Somewhat related to inclusion services, considering previously our numbers had been around 10 inclusion requests from both districts, and we had 25 last summer alone. We're seeing a marked increase in preschool inclusion requests, as well as we see a number of parents coming to the Park District and saying, this is the only option we have, and we're able to offer inclusion aids to help with that as well. We also did our own compensation and classification study with MGT, formerly GovHR, similar to what you all did, and that meant increases for the full-time staff as well that's represented in the budget. We already talked about the programs that are located here now in Urbana that we're really proud of. But the feeder program continues to grow. They offered 2 nights instead of just 1 performance this last round. And some of the people that were in attendance were so pleased that they came and offered sponsorship. So they're looking to help out with the lights that we're interested in purchasing. We've also included some other upgrades, such as temporary staging, microphones, etc. that's going to continue to enhance and grow this wonderful program. They had $700 in donations, which is like triple what they've ever gotten in this last round. So it's a really growing and interesting program. So we talked a lot about, or I've talked a lot about all the things that have led up to maybe more of a professional presentation of CUSR that we've also been focusing on. And Tim and Corky and Sarah have been leaders in considering ways that we can activate the advisory committee. So Tim wrote in his board packet report tonight about how we're advancing a logo design for CUSR. But we hope that just adds to the whole series of things we've been doing to up their professionalism, grow support for the program, and advocacy and awareness. So those are the major things that I wanted to highlight from the budget tonight, but you've had some time to look over the materials that we presented, so Sarah and I will both welcome any questions that you have, and you're welcome to add anything that I might have missed out on as well.
Things are going well.
Yes, absolutely.
Just so you all know too, we're all excited about the new playground. We have a tour set up. We have staff from both groups going to visit some really exciting universal all access play. We hope to learn a lot, bring great ideas back. So we've got that scheduled, I think, April 18th, and we're leaving for the day. So that's a first, and we're really excited to see where it's coming together.
I'd just like to point out, I know we'll bring our manager in, but CTRS certification is huge, and it's getting even harder for staff to be able to sit in and get that
Say what that stands for.
Certified Therapeutic Rec Specialist. And the reason it's getting harder is most universities, I think there's 2 in the state. Is it Western?
One.
Yeah, Western just cut theirs.
Yeah.
Western just cut theirs, so
Yeah.
ISU is the only one.
ISU is the only one.
That have a therapeutic recreation program. It used to be when you were in recreation services for a degree, you can specialize in therapeutic recreation, and that's no longer available unless you go to Illinois State University. And it's pretty thin all across the United States as well. And when you talk with Jennifer Skolsky, who Champaign Park District's having their audit done with Jennifer now, that's huge. It's just a different mindset, a different professional level. If you have the capability to sit in and pass that exam, So, again, one of the things Jared asked Tim and I when he first started taking over special rec was, what do we need? And this is definitely one of those pieces that we need. So, kudos for working with her to get that done.
It's been years. I mean,
Yeah.
what she's had to do to get to be able to sit for the exam has been a several-year process, and it's important for CUSR, like, to get more staff to that point of being able to sit for the exam and be supportive of that.
It'd be good to keep our intern pipelines open at Illinois State. Anytime we get an opportunity, just so we're staying in touch with the faculty and the program.
I know that I've heard from families who have noticed the change, seen the physical changes, and are super excited about the playground. So I have heard that feedback from people. So that's you're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, that's great too.
Thank you.
Good information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for moving us up in your agenda as well. I appreciate that too.
You shouldn't have to stay here for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming out. Item is Roman numeral 6, Urbana Park District Advisory Committee report. I have a written report, I think is that all, that there's no one here in person to. Any questions regarding that? Hearing none, then let's move on to Roman numeral 7, consent agenda. On our consent agenda this evening, quite a long list, about minutes in particular. We have approval of the minutes of the February 4th, 2025 executive session, approval of the minutes of the February 11th, 2025 executive session, and the minutes of the March 4th, 2025 study session meeting, the minutes of the March 11th, 2025 regular board meeting, approval of the minutes of the March 25, 2025 special board meeting, approval of the minutes of the March 31st, 2025 morning special board meeting, and approval of minutes of the March 31, 2025 special board meeting for the afternoon. The 3 monthly departmental reports with administration, planning and operations, and recreation. Action to accept the philanthropy report is listed with gratitude. Approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. Action to receive post-issuance tax compliance report. And action to approve the resolution 2025-01 to designate committed ending fund balances. Those are the items on the consent agenda. It is the purview of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Is there any commissioner wanting to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening?
I move to approve all of the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
Moved and Cedric's the second, I think, was the first second.
I only said,
And so we now have the motion on the table, and then under the rules of the consent agenda, there's to be no further discussion at this point. So let's hold a roll call, starting with Laura.
Aye.
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 I,
And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting in favor. Which takes it then on to financial reports.
Yay, the fun stuff. Just trying to pep it up a little bit. All right, we will start with, as per usual, our fund balance reports. These are showing our receipts or revenues and expenditures, comparing the prior 12 months, reflecting the prior 12 months, budget for the current period, preliminary unaudited results for the 11 months ending on March 31st of 2025. And page 1 is listed here as our sub 1. This is all of our funds, excluding the capital improvements fund. And here we see revenues, total revenues, $14,459,918. This is very, very similar, like really similar to last month as well as last year, so right on par. Our expenditures, total expenditures, $12,942,952. Again, this is extremely similar to last month, so doing really well. Compared to last year, this is about $3 million less in expenditures, so we're in the right spot. Last year when we were gearing up to begin health and wellness. So the result here is that we have a surplus after 11 months, meaning in excess of revenues over expenditures of $1,517,327. Moving to page 2, where we see the capital improvement fund by itself. Here we're showing total revenues after 11 months of $6,687,411. Again, even with last month, about $2 million less than last year. Expenditures here reflecting $7,031,636. This is about $600,000 less than last month and about $500,000 less than last year. So all things in the right direction. This does leave us with a deficit at the end of the month of $344,224. And our last page in the fund balance reports, this is sum 3 showing all funds district-wide. And here we're just noting that the ending fund balance for the district as a whole, $11,280,265. And then the remaining pages are our main working funds, the general, recreation, museum, and indoor pool. Any questions or comments on the revenue and expenditures? Okay, we'll move on then to the treasurer's report. This here is a snapshot of the amount of cash the district has on a single day, which is March 31st, 2025. Our 25 funds are listed down the left, where they're invested across the top. And, excuse me, investments on this date are totaling $12,849,268.67. Moving to page 2 of the treasurer's report, the top section lists the accounts where we have interest-bearing accounts, and of that $12,849,000, we do have $9,191,000 out in interest-bearing investments. The bottom section of page 2 is our interfund loans. Here we did have a little bit of new activity, $20,000. Again, this was rec helping out pool. We are in the last month of the fiscal period, and that all is going to get backed out, and all the other entries that we do at the end of the year moved in, so we'll see quite a bit of activity probably over the next couple of months here as we move through the end of year motions. And then page 3 of the treasurer's report, this is the list of disbursements for the month of March. Vendor payments are matching the accounts payable from the consent agenda, and total disbursements, which include payroll and vendor payments, is $1,501,694. questions on the treasurer's report? All right, awesome. I present you the treasurer's report for audit approval.
I move to accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Let's do a roll call, starting with Roger this time.
Aye.
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 Hi.
And that carries unanimously.
All right, we'll move on then to the capital budgets. Fairly light month, I'm pretty excited about that. Page 1, 2019A, ARS bond. This capital budget had one single, well, it's not a single transaction, $1,707. This did go to miscellaneous vendors, and this is still rounding up, shoring up our F&E fixtures, furniture, and equipment at the Hawk. Next page is our 2025 budget. Here we see an expenditure of $50,000. This is at the Meadowbrook Park Prairie Play. This is in regards to ADA features using the ADA funds. And then also we had payments to 2 artists for 2 pieces of sculpture for Yikes and for Water. And then we did purchase one of the wide area mowers, and you'll see that the net effect is $11,959 for a brand new mower, which is super exciting. But we did pay $71,959, but there were 2 trade-ins, $30,000 apiece, total of $60,000. So good job, Andy. 2024 had no activity during March. 2023 had just a couple of expenditures, $1,300 to Dustin Sons for a new chainsaw coming out of our operations small equipment line, and then $997 payable to Playground Plastics, and this was for the Pickett's purchase. This is our 3rd round of those. 2022, again, just 2 expenditures here, $260 out of our tributes and donations line for plaque. And then again at the bottom, this is $45,299 paid to Mid-Illinois. This is construction number 10. 2021 had no activity during March. 2020 had a single expenditure, $3,359 expense to vendor new toys. This was for playground improvements at the Ambucks Park. And 2019 had no activity. Which is all I have for the capital budgets, but I know Andy and Derek will have some updates for us.
Yeah, just a few updates this month. First one's obviously on the big construction project we have ongoing currently. This is out at South Ridge. This is pulled from kind of the usual update image slide I've been providing to the board. So here's Myra Ridge. The highlighted sections, just as a reminder, are the bench pads. 4 of the 5 are new, and then this blue section here is where that accessible parking will go along the road. So the contractor's been working quicker than anticipated. We have construction entrances, 2 off Myra Ridge, 1 over here on the Park Drive. So this is kind of where they started initially, probably about 3 weeks ago, and worked in this section on the southeast, heading north. And then they've been, basically in the past few weeks, the entire path is paved. So there's some additional work that's going to happen in this section. They need to tie in here towards Myra Ridge. The ADA parking stall will probably be about the last thing that gets done. That, and they're finishing up the bench pads. And as usual, I have some construction progress pictures. So this is on that first stretch that they worked on the eastern side heading north. This is after a pour, one of the first sections that they did. This is looking towards the north. This is looking the opposite direction after the concrete itself has been cured, and then they're backfilling and seeding as they go in those different sections. There's some topsoil that's piled along a lot of the area. currently that has not been backfilled, graded, and seeded. That's one of the other big remaining items that they have left to do. This is off of Myra Ridge on the, what would be the southern entrance, not the main path entrance that would have the accessible parking to it, so away from the playground. This is just a little further down here, just as they were forming the path itself. What's kind of worked well is as they've been removing the existing path, they've been doing the rock base. So it's been able to be functioning as a path for the most part throughout the project.
I haven't seen anybody walk on the gravel, but I drive by it constantly, so.
It looks so good.
They've been really good to work with, very considerate of neighbors, and been very speedy. So really not much complaints to speak of. This is, which is currently paved. This is on that northern section off of Myra Ridge where the playground would be up here. So this is kind of that last connection. Right now it's paved almost exactly to the city sidewalk. So this is just while they're doing demo work. And then this is one of the bench pads, just to kind of further explain that we have bench pads that also still need to be finished up. And one of the bench pads has a, I guess I'd call it a tandem Adirondack. It's a double Adirondack bench, so that has been removed, new pad, and then it'll get replaced. The other bench pads would be more of our traditional park benches. So as long as weather holds up, I think probably by the next board meeting I'll have, I believe, finished pictures with grading, backfilling. Probably won't have a lot of grass up at that point, but I can be optimistic. And so, yeah, everything's been going well on that one. KRT, so typically I kind of go through the two different project portions. First, starting with our project at Weaver, the Trailhead and Pavilion. We had a pre-construction meeting this afternoon with Mid-Illinois and Farnsworth and the Forest Preserve districts were there as well. And so basically what we've talked about dictating the schedule is the pavilion, the structure itself. So that submittal's been working through. Farnsworth has approved it to go back to Polygon, where their engineers will then revise and make final drawings for it to come back to Farnsworth for approval, and then it'll get ordered. The anticipation for delivery of the structure right now is the end of July. I was anticipating Mid-Illinois probably starting into May, early June, just to prepare the site for the pavilion. It looks like they're going to actually try to get out there and start earlier. So they could be starting to set up construction fences and preparing for site work early May. So there may be a time where they get all their site work done and we're waiting on a pavilion to arrive for them to continue. So there could be a time in the summer where we may not have a lot of activity at the site, depending on how the schedule works out. With the trail portion, more in Vermilion and Champaign County Forest Preserve, so we talked about the tree removals. There was a firm deadline to get the trees actually removed throughout the new trail section, and that was March 31st. That's been done. What's happening now is that contractor for the tree removals is now removing the trees that have been taken down and laid to the side off-site. So that's probably going to wrap up at the end of April, maybe early May. And then the other item is with the bridge that we've talked about the past couple months. So if you recall, ERA was going out to have a third opinion on the usability of the bridge, and they're in concurrence with IDOT that bridge could be used without additional work, without replacement, without repairs. I think what was said is that semis could start going over it tomorrow if we needed to. So the Forest Preserve is going back and working with Kaskaskia engineers to try to move ahead, basically to get a bid out for the trail portion that will include that bridge without any work being done. I don't have a timeline on that at this point, but pretty good news that we have IDOT and another local structural engineer that's signed off on the usability of the bridge.
With no modification.
Right, yeah, true, yes,
Which is a big bonus.
yeah. And then, last thing I'll mention is just, the Phillips ramp and railing project. So, we've got our final designs. If you recall, we're gonna go out and start to get pricing to revise this entrance where the ramp was a little too steep, where its grade currently would necessitate us to have some handrails. So this is basically gonna be the area you can see here with new concrete. They're actually gonna extend the flat portion by the door a little bit out and raise this portion here, so it'll kind of bring the overall steepness to a little bit less of a grade, but it would still require handrails, obviously. So then there'll be 2 handrails that will extend, I think, a foot past where where it meets the overall sidewalk. And it's not a requirement, but we've requested to include the handrail to go along this portion of the main route to the parking lot, or the parking lot to the building. That's just been a comment that we've had in the past. It wasn't cited in our ADA, but we think it'd be a best practice to include that. And with that is to add a bench pad. That was something else that we've received comments on before, where people taking the walk from the parking lot to Phillips had kind of requested an area where they could stop if needed. And that handrail will also help kind of finish that route in. So we're working with Phillips staff as well. Again, we're looking to schedule the work in the fall after summer camp is out of there, but I'm hoping to get some pricing and contractors lined up sooner than later, so we can be prepared for that impact that we're going to have to the entry of the facility. So I'll probably bring this up again in August or September when we get close, but we are still working on this one. And I think that's all I had. I'm happy to answer questions or review any other projects.
I would say, Andy, that I'm really happy to see the extension of the handrail and the bench, because watching some of the really physically challenged people coming out of those classes, one does worry. So they have something to hold on to and they have a place to rest. That's good.
I would say too, for anybody, maybe anyone home watching that might be concerned about a change of look or how's that going. I think most people see it as welcome here. And I think the cottage is a good example. You know, historic building. Oh, gee, you can't do this shit. It looks wonderful and it functions really well. So I think we get a lot of positive comments out of that.
Okay, thank you. And let's move on into the executive director's report.
Let's see, as you all know, we have very busy April and May, so our agendas are pretty full. So we have a lot going. Everything's moving along though. I think we had a very exciting You Belong Here report. Speaking of that, one of the first things I want to update is had a terrific meeting with Fine and Applied Arts College Dean, Dean Jake Pinholster. They're very committed to looking at outreach opportunities in the community, so they're kind of working through all of the local agencies and other groups to find out, you know, who could be potential partners. So I met with them, talked about all the different activities we have going on, different art and design-based activities, art and culture. So they're going to coordinate a charrette, I think it's not this Friday, but the next Friday in downtown Urbana, inviting all the groups back together to see what we can put together. It's very exciting. One of the things I love, I kind of talked about our Urbana, hey, we're mobile, we could maybe go, and they were clear on, our goal is to come to the community. So the goal is to get people to campus, which certainly has its charms, but it has its challenges as well. So we'll see what comes of that, and let's look forward. But good to learn that others are being motivated with outreach opportunities. Just want to mention on our legislative update request, I think we had kind of a little bit of change. Derek and I recommended not to submit anything to the Durbin portal. Essentially, we were starting to double up on our Representative Brzezinski's request, and it was probably likely to head one of the 3 main departments. So we talked with Brzezinski's staff, and generally they left it to us, but our thought was we didn't want the Illinois delegation to get together and review projects and see us listed similarly in a few spots. I just can't imagine that working, no matter almost whatever your need is. You know, it would have to be extraordinary off the chart. So we're trying to improve our options by continuing to work in the lane that we're already I don't want to say pre-approved, but we've been notified, and there's still ongoing work to try to see what, of that award that we can still receive. Further, Mayor Marlin chimed in because we were looking at Senator Duckworth's quote, who is not open. Her comment was, we didn't get things from the last round through, let's concentrate on that instead of, probably, I'm using my words, adding to that with more requests and sort of watering that down. So that seemed to make a lot of sense. We had really good conversations with Representative Hammond on the state level and Senator Balcaracci, I think staff reported. So I think all of our legislative requests and efforts and communications are done. We still have the legislative conference in Springfield. Maybe we'll learn some more there. And then we'll have staff and folks there at the Capitol Day. So we look forward to that lobby effort. As you know, go ahead.
But this piece is encourage us to reapply for the full $3.5 million.
Right.
So it's going to help us reapply, help with some of the language.
Yeah.
And
time extension too, I think we're due like in mid-May now. We're very excited for help. Staff is very helpful. Again, we're not implying we have the money. It's guaranteed. It's in the pipeline, but we're doing everything, their office is doing everything we can do to secure what we can secure. Moving on, let's see, just want to mention this Friday, we're hosting the I Engage at the Health and Wellness Center. A couple of years ago, as part of the outreach efforts in Community Compact, there was efforts to get community folks to engage with the campus with community groups. And so one of the programs is to attract new faculty, new PhD folks from the university to come. We have about 45 to 50 folks that will be joining us. We did it at Meadowbrook at the Interpretive Center last year. It was more on recreation. Sarah Sandquist and I and Lori Pearson presented to that group. We have a different group presenting this year, but we were included back in. And topics are going to be, community wellness. So we'll talk about our aspects and probably more the public and public recreation and wellness side of that. So we look forward and appreciate Corky staff for hosting us. We'll be there. Community Coalition updates. I think I shared at the Saturday workshop. I think we have a little time to share, but our last meeting, everyone's feeling the impacts of changes and pretty dire situations out there. So we all are committed to work together and continue to support one another and see how we can manage our way in this situation. Lastly, just wanted to mention we had the Boneyard Arts Festival this week, and I was thrilled. Park District had 3 wonderful venues. Hopefully you got out to see them. The venue that I was at was at the Meadowbrook Interpretive Center. We had Larry Young, who produced Tango, was our first sculpture we acquired at the district. He did a terrific program, had some wonderful videos. And unfortunately, the rain was tough, that sort of walk in. Last year we had great weather, lots of people, but everybody that stopped in was wowed. We have a 2-time Olympic bronze medalist, there, and he's a fabulous artist. He has his own foundry in Missouri and Columbia, and a professor teaching, and just a wide, very interesting person. So we're proud to have him. Things I think we talked about is maybe better, find more ways we can elevate when we do have special people like that. There should have been a line out the door for people, kids, things like that will connect. Children's art that was produced, fantastic. But again, we know we're in the weather business as far as outdoor events. If it's good, it's good, and if it's not, it's a little tough. But they were super gracious. They also brought a new sculpture we installed, DNA Dance. It's on the Hickman Walk. It filled the spot, but we took Janet Austin's piece out just recently. So nice to have a new piece in. It's beautiful, and glad our relationship. We've all been invited to visit their studio. I hope to make it one of these days. Let's see, the last item. Also, thanks to Derek's staff for helping with the DNA Dance install.
I saw it today.
Great. What'd you think?
Looks great.
Terrific. I think that's all I had. I can answer any questions.
Thanks, President's report. We have an upcoming agenda. We have UPDAC is on April 22nd. May 6th is the board study session. And be talking about strategic planning for Weaver, King, Crystal Lake Park. And then May 13th is the annual board meeting. So little changeover going on.
I have a quick question.
Busy man.
Sorry, Tim.
Yeah.
For the update meeting, that's about King Park or at King Park, or both?
It's about King Park, sorry, thank you. Yes. But we do updates on the group planning.
Moving on to liaison reports, finance study group met last Friday. And our next meeting is scheduled for May 2nd. I think most of the things that we covered in that are included here tonight. What we talked about, there were a few additional details about the present situation. And I think I said anything else other than we haven't seen come forward here tonight is the materials were presented for this evening.
If there was, it was covered in the Saturday meeting, it was.
That's true. It's a little fuzzy now, right?
Gets a little fuzzy. And there's the policy study group, which has something on the agenda.
Right, and then we meet on April 23rd. Right? Yeah, correct.
Foundation report.
I was unable to attend their meeting. From what I understand from the materials that I received, they worked on putting together basically what's a mission vision statement for the foundation. And from what I can tell, the members are pretty excited about it. So they're moving in a direction to become better organized.
And then Jack planning study group. Nothing new on that.
That's what we need then.
Okay, moving on to old business. The only item there is action on anything removed from the consent agenda, which was nothing. So let's move on to new business. We've already dealt with item A, new business. So we're on to B, action to approve a gift agreement for the development of Urbana Park.
You'll note, Kelsey, back you prepared the gift agreement, and just wanted to report, we've had a wonderful experience working with the England family. We've had a very long ongoing discussion. I think they reached out to us a long time ago, a couple of years ago, just toward the ending of the development at the Health and Wellness Center. They were so intrigued, kind of did an overview of all of our big moves, special projects, different variety of scales of projects, and they seemed very interested. It took a while for them to zero in, but certainly supported the Health and Wellness Center landscape as our first gift project with them, and they're very pleased how that turned out. Beautiful landscape with the beautiful sculpture there. We knew when we very first met, they had a strong, keen interest in the Weaver Park and the KRT and natural areas and everything happening in that park. When we first met and talked about that, we really weren't advanced enough in planning and development to really solidify anything. So we've been very steadfast, came back and kind of waited that out. When we had an opportunity that the KRT Pavilion was moving forward, we wanted to share that with them, and we quickly identified with that project, as you see in the gift agreement. As you know, we gifts of over 50,000 will be approved by both Park District and the Foundation. So it's on the table tonight. Englands are also interested in additional things in the Park District. We talked with them about working, coordinating with his staff on a swim program that we're going to target with Don Boyer's Boys and Girls Club to encourage and create new opportunities for aquatics for their group. So working on the details of that, that's not part of this arrangement, but we're just really happy that they're engaged and continue to work with them. Any questions on the agreement? It's fairly straightforward.
I move to approve the gift agreement for the development of Weaver and Prairie Park.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Other than say, what a very generous gift.
Yeah.
on the table. Let's do a roll call, starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 That carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. Moves us on to item C, action on ordinance 2025-01, revision to chapter 6 of the board policy.
Laura's gonna cover.
Yeah, so the policy study group has been reviewing the existing security camera policy that the Park District has. And it's a fairly small, condensed, broad stroke type of a policy. But back in June of 2023, Governor Pritzker signed into order, or whatever you call it, I'm not that political, I don't know, but anyway, it's Senate Bill 1840, and I did include it here in your packet. But this basically gave us some expanded use of our police fund. And with that, we decided that, we would do better with what we have as far as security cameras in the district, and as well as expand the use of cameras in the district. So with this came updates to the existing policy. And we reviewed what others put in their policy. Several of us have attended several sessions with the IAPD conference held in January regarding best practices and what should be included in your policy, how it should lay out, etc. So the policy study group looked at all of those things and came up with a better version of our policy. And literally is just to clearly state our purpose, our scope, the definitions, and accessibility of the use of the cameras in the district. And so one of the very notable changes was that our old policy stated a 30-day retention of footage, and really the best practice is a minimum of 60 days. Lots of places recommend 90 and more, but 60 days is what we collectively decided would be a good fit for the district for retaining footage, and then it automatically overwrites the oldest first. And then at the Hawk, we do use live feed monitoring at the reception area desk, and so we wanted to make sure that people who read our policy, but the district as well, understands that that live feed is visual monitoring only. No staff have access to it. It's not like they can go somewhere and rewind and go back and look at something. They don't have accessibility to do anything but observe, and that's literally for the safety of the patrons and our staff and our property. So we wanted to make sure to make mention of that. And we also wanted to include the fact that the video recordings are FOIA-able records. So we wanted to make sure to mention in there how that's handled with FOIA. So all of that brought us to this updated policy, and I apologize that I did not include it in your original package, but I left you the actual policy to have for your reference. And the staff would just ask that the board accept these updates and open for comment.
So is it indeed the case that any disgruntled whomever can disgruntle otherwise and say, I want all the video footage from the Hawk for my 60 days?
No, it still has.
Reasonable time.
Yeah, I mean, the request has to be reasonable, but, they also can't just randomly ask for something. They have to have a potential reason why. They can't just ask for it to ask for it. So there has to be a legitimate request of it.
Beyond just wanting to be a pain in the road.
Correct.
Okay, I don't know how that gets defined, but all right.
Yeah.
Had this incident happened at 3:20 on Saturday, if so, could it, we want to FOIA it from 3:15 to 3:45 or something to that nature? Which will have have an incident report discussing it
Sure.
as well, right?
Right.
So,
Support.
Most likely, a lot of those come from my car got hit. And do we have
Sure.
video of that? I don't know what time, but that's, yeah, ours have been FOIA
The
twice.
sweatshirt got stolen,
Yeah,
but I don't think they would FOIA that, there would be more of just come to us, for us to check it. Now, not everybody can look at that, but the director does have the ability to give the superintendents in this case, I believe, the ability to go back and look at certain timeframes. Mainly because if we don't do it that way, which we've been having to do, is that if we don't go back and look at it, or we don't know how, or we don't have access, then we're calling MCS, and that's probably about $105 every time they do it, or more.
and it's very time consuming to look through those videos.
Yes.
Very.
I
A
think
couple
Derek can
times-
attest to that.
And a couple times that we have used MCS, it's been really quick because we do have a time frame. It's 3:20 on Saturday. The incident happened somewhere between 3:20 and 4, so then they can snip it out and they can send just that section to us in a zip file.
Certainly hope and understand, the public need for that. Certainly our interests are purely safety and security, these are the, comfort of the visitors. But certainly others had need, and we have the ability and can help secure our facility. I think that's our general intent.
You may have said it in the policy that we already have, but I like the where there is no reasonable expectations of privacy. I think it's important. And
Correct.
to have that in
I
there.
agree. I appreciate that too, as a visitor.
It is in there.
It was Anselm Blake who's presented on this for numerous state conferences, and the recommendation was that 60-day increment is important for FOIA, because after which those records are destroyed essentially. So we can't retrieve them. We have one patron at Hawk reading it with their coat already, who was mistakenly taken by it at different pantries, so.
Accidentally, I hope. Right.
It's actually the last paragraph in the
Well, I move to approve ordinance 2025-01 to revise the security cameras policy located in chapter 6 board policy manual.
Second.
Yep, moved and second. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none, let's go roll call, starting with Laura.
Aye.
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 I,
And that carries unanimously for all 5 commissioners. Now we're down to item D, ordinance 2025-02, revising the combined budget and appropriation.
Me again.
Laura?
Yep.
Do you remember?
So, everyone's familiar with this one. This is a standard annual board action. The purpose of this is to, help, flush out, even out our accounts for the end of the fiscal year, balancing out all the funds in our budget, and of course, prior to the audit, which, starts right after the end of our fiscal year. Typically, these are reflective of our fund balance transfers, we just make between funds, like a museum moves to general moves to bond, we pay our bonds, et cetera. And typically, that's what these adjustments are for. We plan for them, they may not be spot on, and we have to adjust for them appropriately. And, it could even include, as Sarah and Jared had mentioned, they had to do a budget revision for an appropriation for an actual expenditure. So that can happen in here as well. We don't have any this year. But that's all this is, it's a reconciliation, so.
Figure and shuffle.
Figure and shuffle, exactly. We need some music to that.
I move to adopt ordinance 2025-02, revising the combined budget and appropriation ordinance.
Second.
Well, the fact that I thought I heard or? Oh,
Whatever to Roger.
Okay.
I pass it over.
Kind of a runner, I guess.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Now we're to action on resolution 2025-02 to approve the 2025-2026 annual compensation action.
Hi, me again, welcome back.
All we were.
So, yeah, this is, again, an annual action, and, you know, staff has been working on options and so forth over a couple of months, and then we prepared 3 options and shared that with the board at our finance study group for initial consideration, and then it was presented to the full board at our study session on April 1st. And at that session, a 4th option was asked of and requested and provided, and I believe it was well received. And so what we've included here are what those options were. The 3 original ones, the 4th one was the percentage as opposed to a dollar-based flat increase. And no other changes were made to the annual options. We are still doing our 9 grades. We are still doing our 16 steps. We are still doing the merit, one-time merit of $1,000 for nominated employees. Cell phone remaining the same, health insurance, opting out incentive remaining the same for this next year. The rate, the IRS rate for mileage did increase 3 cents from 67 cents a mile to 70, so that's reflective here. They did it obviously January 1st, but we do it as part of our annual action. So, and then car allowance for executive director and superintendent is remaining the same as well. So, off to the board.
Well, I move to approve resolution 2025-02, approving the fiscal year 2025-2026 annual compensation actions with a base increase of 4%.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or any clarifications desired? Hearing none, then the roll call starting with Laura.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. We're on to receiving the preliminary budget.
My last time, I promise. So, yeah, just a reminder that this preliminary budget is exactly that, verbatim, preliminary, very preliminary, and primarily because, as has been usual fashion for many years now, we do not have our finalized levy extension yet. I can tell you that they've provided me the opportunity to reallocate, and that happened last week, but I've not received that final, reflecting those reallocations. So what we're seeing in this preliminary as far as levy is what our probable was. So, you know, what we discussed back in November and put in the black box and all of those things. So wages, again, same thing. We are here tonight for the board to approve our wages, and so what's reflected in this preliminary budget is what we knew everybody's rates last year, and then we just put in kind of like a placeholder within the budget based on the assumptions that we've been talking about for the last couple of months. So now that we have that information, that's one of the first things I'll do this week is go back in and actualize the wages based on what was approved this evening. And hopefully we'll hear in the next few days from the county, and I'll be able to update the levy with the actual extension numbers. So again, the smaller funds, we tend to, the ones we can, we zero out, and we do that kind of as a buffer. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So like on the last page, the capital improvements, Crystal Lake Pool Renewal Fund, the rec fund, the actual aquatics program, contributes 12.5% of their revenue to this fund to help maintain the pool. So that's what the revenues are, but the expenditures here, whatever we have in the account, we appropriate for it because we just don't know what kind of surprises might come up, and we need to be able to fund them. So we fund that, we appropriate it out so that the fund balance is to zero. We may or may not use it, but there are several funds in here, the smaller ones, where we do that. The land acquisition fund's another good one. We don't have any real plans. We've got a couple of things that we're talking about, but no real plans in the next 12 months, to make any type of a purchase. But it's another one where whatever we have in that account, we appropriate it all because we just want to be able to act on an opportunity should something arise in a timely manner. So I'll walk you through the first 3 pages, which are similar to what we do in the monthly budget. It's a sum 1, sum 2, sum 3 type of a scenario. And again, here, I think what's key for the board to review and assess here is the second column and the fourth column. Those are the actual budgets. The previous budget, or the one we're just trying to get ready to button up, and what we're planning for FY26. And so if you note here in the last column, total estimated revenues for the district as a whole minus the capital improvements fund, or regular sum 1. Total revenues here are 17 million. This, if you'll notice in column 2, that's about $2 million more over last year. And again, that's largely reflective of the using the proposed for our property tax allotment here, because we don't know what the actual is yet. But we know it's never what we asked for. It's always much less. So a large portion of that overage is going to be the tax dollars. And then noting here, total expenditures are at 15 million. And if you look at column 2, that's really right in line with what our expenditures were last year budgeted for. So, and noticing that our activity, even though this is only activity through March 31st, we're at 13 million. So we're under what we're budgeting for expenditures for the district as a whole. So again, looking at this is the net of revenue over appropriations for all funds. This is showing us a positive $2,333,000. So that's a net increase in our fund balance. Again, likely it's not going to be that high once we get all these actualized figures put in. Moving on to the, I call it sum 2. This is just the capital funds by a capital improvement fund by itself. Here we're seeing in the far right column, total revenues $2,184,000. This is down about $4 million over last year, and rightfully so. The largest difference here is in the grants line. Last year we had budgeted for just over $4 million in grants, and you'll see that this year right now it does say 0. But I can tell you that we just recently, like within the last week, 5 days, I don't know, signed the DCEO for $450,000. So we know that that's revenue, grants that's going to become reflective on here as we update them for July. And, fingers crossed if we were to get anything from Ammon's office.
Yeah, and OSLAD will apply for.
And OSLAD that we apply for if we get notification of it in time before July. So here also then total appropriations, we're showing $4,665,000, and that's down $5 million over last year, as it well should be, since we're not doing the $16 million facility next year.
And is the DCO a reimbursement or is full-up?
It's for a new bridge that hasn't been built yet. It's going to be at the nature center.
But I mean, is it
It's a reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement. Sorry, yes. Got it.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, that's not a double check.
Yeah.
I assume, but.
And again, the sum 3 page, this is literally looking at the very last column, the very last line. This is our ending fund balance at all funds. So that's it for budgeting for $10,917,000. And then the rest of the pages are just, again, all of the individual little funds, and I don't really have any comments or conversation. Maybe same as last year. If you turn to page 12, this is the CU Special Rec Fund. And I believe I've already mentioned this before, but for the last 2 years, earned accrued interest on our property taxes because they weren't paying us, promptly, giving us that monies promptly. And so we had earned some interest, and I budgeted for some, but not enough because it was $300 the year before, and it's almost $700 this year. So it's showing a negative $690. It's because we didn't appropriate for it, so I can't pay it to them yet. So I have to wait until May 1, appropriate for it, pay them, reimburse them that accrued interest. So, yeah, but other than that, if there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Good job building the budget.
Well, I have a great team
Interesting
helping.
story, yeah. Quite a process
Yeah.
without everything in place.
Yep, it's kind of tough, but, we do our best to guesstimate and educated guesses, so. Okay. Again, no action on this. Your action will be in July when it's finalized. But we want to give you an idea of where we're at and let you know that we are working on it, actively working on it, and yeah, it'll be a lot of work between now and July. So.
Okay, moving on to item G, action to approve revisions to the 2019, 2019A, 2020, 2022, 2024, and 2025 capital improvement.
Okay, so I'm going to walk through the highlighted sections for the attached budgets of the memo. A lot of these years, there's not many revisions to go through, but it should be in order from oldest to newest. So I'll start at 2019 capital budget.
So close to closing this one.
So this really is just in the contingency section there at the bottom. An expenditure related to Meadowbrook Prairie Play, which has been zeroed out contingency. And as Laura mentioned, we're ready to just close this budget out here very soon. I think after we receive some revenue from CUSR, this one will be done. 2019A, the donations and the revenues for health and wellness facility from the foundation have been increased, and that reflects the actual amount received at this point, and that's reflected down below in the health and wellness initiatives section. 2020 and the overall contingency section at the bottom, we had an expenditure for Crystal Lake Park lighting, so that reduces the remaining contingency in the overall budget down to the $90,473. In 2022, revenues were updated to reflect actual donations for the Prairie Play Playground. That's from Foundation and directly to the Park District there. And then our final funds received for ITEP Broadway project. And then we have, those are reflected down in the expenditure sections. And then our tributes and donations has been updated to reflect the actual expenditures. That adjusts the overall contingency down at the bottom to that $19,182. And then just above that, we had in the Crystal Lake Park improvement section, work related to water quality. This was last year's manual removal projects, and then that reduces the overall available funds associated for Crystal Lake Park improvements in that budget. And then that takes us to 2024, where we have in the revenue section additional funds for tributes and donations. We had a transfer from the museum fund, and that was for window replacements. And then we had funds from the English fund, and this was for portions of the expenditures for the slide tower replacement project. And then we had an auction for the F-250 M42. Those were our auction proceeds. Within the expenditure section, you'll see a lot of those items reflecting now balancing out the revenues that have been adjusted. And then in the equipment section, we purchased a rotary broom. It's for one of our mowers. And then this is the trailer. We purchased a new trailer for the mowers, and that's a portion of that expenditure. And then contingency's been adjusted where now we can see that portion of the expenditure for the UIAC slide tower. And then that moves us to 2025. In revenues, we received more from our bond sale than we had anticipated. And so that now increases the overall contingency at the bottom from the 54,500 to the 60,220. That's all the additional bond revenue. And then a donation of 40,000 for 2 sculptures. And those expenditure lines are now split within the expenditure section for both at $20,000 each. And then the other payment for the portion of the trailer, $1,540, was pulled from 2025, so that reduces the overall contingency in that equipment section down to the $248,460. And that's all the revisions. Laura and I can answer any questions if you have any.
I move to approve the capital improvement budgets. Number 11, revision to the 2019 capital improvement budget. Number 5, revision to the 2019A capital improvement budget. Number 6, revision to the 2020 capital improvement budget. Number 5, revision to the 2022 capital improvement budget. Number 3, to the 2024 capital improvement budget. And number 1, revision to the 2025 capital improvement budget. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, let's go roll call. Everyone?
Aye.
Aye.
None?
Aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously. Those changes have been approved. There was no new business. We went to the consent agenda, so we're on to Roman numeral 11. Comments from commissioners?
How did the solar panel installation go?
Yes.
Went without a hitch, but there's still pieces to have done. But the power, well, you know,
There was a bit of a hitch.
well, the power came on when it was supposed to.
The electrician arrived without some critical hardware, but he was able to swap something out from elsewhere in the facility to make it work on an initial basis until the hardware arrives. So, but yeah, power's back up and restored, and there's a meter they still need to do, a little bit, about 10% of hardware they still have to install, but I think within a month we should be live. And once we're live, we'll be able to see real time how much we generate. That'd be cool.
But we won't have to close the building again for any further.
Not
That we know of.
Yeah.
And why was it necessary to close the building for this phase?
Ameren needed to have a complete disconnect. They want all the power off, and there was no guarantee of how quickly they'd be able to get it back on. It's the joys of working.
Well, it'd been nice to have it on today. Big time solar day. Biggest day of the year in my system. By quite a bit. Any other? Well, something on the agenda, it now says reconvene regular board meeting.
Yeah.
I think we've been doing.
I meant actually to amend that, and I forgot. So I moved that.
Executive session.
I believe we have exhausted our agenda, and I think it's our adjourned.